Now, the Apostle Paul used an illustration that we're going to consider that also shows the need for patience in our teaching. I invite you to open your Bibles, please, to 2 Corinthians 10, verses 4 and 5. As we read these verses, I'd like for you to note two key points that we can take away that show the need for patience in our teaching. Now, the word patience does not appear in these verses, but the idea is there. See if you can pick it out. 2 Corinthians 10, verse 4, "For the weapons of our warfare are not fleshly, but powerful by God for overturning strongly entrenched things. For we are overturning reasonings and every lofty thing raised up against the knowledge of God, and we are bringing every thought into captivity to make it obedient to the Christ." So in Paul's illustration, the first point we want to take away is that we're engaged in a warfare, but we are not fighting the student. We are fighting with the student against what we read in verse 5, the reasonings and lofty things raised up against the knowledge of God. So it takes patience for us to help the student to get on our side and work with us in fighting against these false teachings, these false beliefs, false practices that they've been told all their lives. It takes patience and time for them to join us in this fight. But there's another key aspect of this illustration. Look again at verse 4, the latter phrase that we read there, that these weapons that we have, they're powerful by God for overturning strongly entrenched things. Now, the study note for 2 Corinthians 10, verse 4 shows that the word picture that Paul is using is the idea of overturning or toppling a mighty or powerful fortress. And the fortress, of course, representing these beliefs and practices that are opposed to God. How is patience involved? Remember, the student lives in the fortress. So if we are in a mad rush to try to tear that fortress down, we're just tearing it down right on top of their head. We have to help them to get out of the fortress, to run to Jehovah as their refuge, and then we can work with them to overturn these strongly entrenched things, all the beliefs and practices that they've been told all their lives.
This is a fascinating insight, isn't it, into how Jehovah's Witnesses go about their preaching or recruitment. We're again hearing from Michael Reno, who is a Bethelite from the Warwick, New York headquarters, and he's appealing to a Bible verse that describes preaching as warfare, but he wants to stress that it's not the student, it's not the interested one that Jehovah's Witnesses are fighting.
So in Paul's illustration, the first point we want to take away is that we're engaged in a warfare, but we are not fighting the student. We are fighting with the student against what we read in verse 5, the reasonings and lofty things raised up against the knowledge of God.
Yes, this isn't the Jehovah's Witness versus the student. This is more like a coalition. This is the Jehovah's Witness fighting with the student against the wrong ideas, which, according to the Bible verse, are to be overturned. My question to Michael Reno would be, how are you overturning ideas that are in contradiction to Jehovah's Witness beliefs, specifically knowledge and information and facts that debunk Jehovah's Witness beliefs? If your response to those facts is to encourage your student to bury their heads in the sand, how are you overturning them? That's manifestly not the approach that Jehovah's Witnesses take. If Michael Reno's talk were to be taken literally, what you would find whenever someone's studying with Jehovah's Witnesses is that if they bring up an objection or a criticism against Jehovah's Witnesses, the Jehovah's Witness would say, well, show me the article or show me the video where you found this. And they'd say, okay, here's the link. It would come up on the WhatsApp and they'd click on it. Okay, well, let's forensically examine this argument. Let's go through this page on JW Facts and let's look up all of the references to historical Jehovah's Witness publications. Let's delve into the logic that's being used here by Paul Grundy. Let's closely examine the argument that we're hearing on the Lloyd Evans channel or wherever. Let's pick it apart and see if it makes sense. And in that way, we will overturn this false reasoning that's being used by apostates or by someone with ideas contrary to the Jehovah's Witness organization. I think we can all agree, whether we are Jehovah's Witnesses or ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, that that's simply not how it works.